Hi there, everyone. My name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. I want to talk about an album that I picked up when I used to work in a home entertainment department that had a good CD selection. Surprisingly, for it being, a generic big box store at the time, and no, it's not the evil W company. It was a Canadian company that's now defunct. But anyways, so when I worked in that department, I stumbled across this CD and I went, hell yeah, let's pick it up, check it out. Looks really cool, right? You're all like, ooh, look at that album. What is that? This album is called Kashmir, and it is Symphonic, Led Zeppelin. So what someone did is they took the time and effort to take 7 classic Zeppelin tunes and fully orchestrate them and had them performed by what are the notes? The London Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Peter Schulz, is where the majority of their performance comes from. There's a variety of musicians on a variety of different instruments because as I get into this, you'll understand why different musicians had to be brought in. I do, before I get into this, want to say that this album should be purchased right off the bat, just because it's a great album to listen to. The job that was done on this, it was scored and arranged by Jazz Coleman. Jazz Coleman did this amazing job with this album. I'm just going to state that right at the start. But the artwork, check out this artwork. And there's this giant write-up in here on the artwork and all the imagery behind it, okay? So, I'm going to scroll this myself as it goes up here, okay? I mean, look at that. Look how beautiful that is. And when you listen to this album, you can see this imagery. You know, this imagery is spectacularly done in a way that it matches the beauty of the music in this album. So let me get into this album. The album opens up with Dawn at the Great Pyramid. Dawn at the Great Pyramid, the liner notes don't, I quickly read through them. It didn't have the typical credits for who wrote it type thing for any songs other than the Zeppelin songs. So I am assuming that it was written by Jazz, scored by Jazz, however you want to put it. Dawn at the Great Pyramid opens it up, and it sets the mood, the vibe for how you're going to enter into this album. It really does. Anybody that's a listener to Zeppelin knows Zeppelin used a lot of Middle Eastern influence, as a lot of bands did through the 60s and 70s. And this is a slow build up to it. It explains in the storyline and stuff in here that the idea behind it is supposed to be someone kind of entering through a market and getting exposed and whatnot. And the reason why this big build up is in here to set this giant mood is because the very first song that comes thundering down. And I mean, just not lightly, but thundering. And that's Kashmir. So, you've got Dawn of the Great Pyramids, which has this beautiful little Middle Eastern build-up kind of vibe going on. Sounds like this great little market going on, and then all of a sudden the and it just comes thundering through. And if you've ever listened to the original version, there's a little scoring in there. If you've ever listened to Zeppelin play the song live, they don't need the scoring to play it. It still works beautifully. But in here, having the fact that it was originally a little bit scored out and a little bit symphony done up in the original version makes it lend real easy to this really fast. But when he scored these, now I've scored songs, I've personally taken the time back in the old days when we had Cakewalk and stuff like that. I took the time to take a lot of classic rock songs and turn them into classical scores. And it was just to say I could do it. I taught myself how to score for different instruments, scored full symphony parts for classic rock songs, just say you do it. But the way I did it is I would transpose certain parts to certain instruments, and I never took the time or initiative to put any of my own imagination really into it. It was more just kind of replicating the music that was already there, using the different instruments at my disposal within an orchestra. And I had some great results. It was a lot of fun, stuff like that to do. But this album, he has some imagination with it. He has some play with it. He doesn't just go with the main music and just say, hey, let's just do these parts on this instrument and this part. We're going to have the flutes do the vocals here, and we're going to do the violins do the guitar parts here, and we're going to have the timpani do this part of the drums, and we're going to have we'll bring in some actual orchestra drums here, and we'll do this here, and we'll do, none of that crap. Obviously you got all those instruments in there. And, yes, obviously the strings do the string parts on Kashmir. But you get what I'm saying, he plays it up. He has some imagination. He puts his own themes into it, his own little nuances, like as if he was the guitarist playing the lead solos, you know what I mean? As a cover in a cover band, where he's got his own inflections and stuff like that. And even own dynamics. Like there's parts where he takes little liberties and, goes off on its own. And with the different musical instruments that are put in there, especially a lot of the Middle Eastern vibe that's in this song, and through a lot of the songs in here, there's parts of it where you get a little, okay, interesting, because he brings it down, and the instruments that are playing in the background you wouldn't quite expect, and it lends a new vibe. But the sweep-in crashes throughout Kashmir are beautiful. Like, every time it goes into the main do 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 do, you hear these big sweep-in crashes, almost like these waves breaking on the seashore, or on the seashore. It's just it's absolutely beautiful. Also helps that Kashmir is one of my all-time favorite songs in general, and probably my I've said it before, it's my hands down favorite Zeppelin song. From there, we go into the Battle of Evermore. Oh, Hobbits. The Hobbits. The Hobbits and the Hobbits inspiring. The Battle of Evermore is there's two songs on here that they're good songs. I think they're fantastic. They're well done. And, compared to the originals, decent tunes. But they're more orchestra pieces to me than they are Zeppelin songs. And the Battle of Evermore falls under that. The Battle of Evermore, it definitely sounds like the original Battle of Evermore. But in this particular case, it's been transmuted and played with and manipulated in a way where, to me, it doesn't feel like the original Zeppelin song anymore. It's definitely inspired by Zeppelin, but it's not actually Zeppelin. There's a lot of that exploring is in this song, and it's really good. But in general, the Battle of Evermore has never been a song I've been big on. I'll be honest on that. It's a good tune, but just not a big Zeppelin tune for me. Okay, which takes us into Led Zeppelin's great hit, Stairway to Heaven. Of course, Stairway to Heaven is going to be on here. And of course, in this rendition, it's like 3 minutes longer than the original version of Stairway to Heaven. I like this. There's a lot of experimenting on this version of it, and there's a lot of playing with it, and this is another song where, as I was just mentioning about how it starts feeling like it's more of its own beast that's inspired by, this one definitely has a middle and an ending, and where it takes its big crescendo in the song, and the way it plays it off and goes from there and stuff like that, it's really interesting. This one really, like, it's nice the way they do it. Okay, so there's almost like a story kind of vibe going on sort of with the way the music flows. Like I said, Dawn at the Great Pyramid gets you that intro, brings you into Kashmir. Kashmir does kind of lead its way nicely into the Battle of Evermore, which, it's got a kind of a battle-y feel. And then you get to Stairway to Heaven, which just kind of continues with that. And when it gets that big crescendo part that I'm talking about, it's almost like it goes into battle. Like, it really does. It has that feel to it where it's really going into battle, and that's it. Vehicles. What can I say? Like this rendition on here. I'll be honest, I actually listen to the version on here more often than I listen to the original Stairway to Heaven. And it's just because I like this rendition. And there's no vocals on here anywhere, folks. This is purely orchestrated music. And you don't need the vocals. You don't. The story that this song tells is wonderful. And that just goes into another great storytelling song, and that's When the Levee Breaks. The orchestrated version on here is probably one of the most faithful to the originals. The whole way through here, there is no doubt that this is When the Levee Breaks, okay? Absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts. This is the most truest to the original version I think there is. But it is done so well, and once again, the way that the instruments, obviously, the London Philharmonic, you expect it to be top-notch. And it absolutely is top-notch. But this version is just great, the way they do it, like they just heavy, and it punches and it delivers. Now, after this big, sprawling, epic-y battling, kind of everything going on, it's all chaos everywhere, right? You get to going to California. And going to California is wonderful. A true celebration of warmth and love, and I hate to say it, this song very much feels like golden age movies, or silver age, golden age, I'm not sure which way it was, 1950s kind of beautiful. Everything about California is golden and magnificent and blah 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 blah. Roll credits. Oh, it's so magnificent, and leave you with a happy ending. Woo! That is Going to California the way it is done on here, and it is fantastic. I absolutely adore it. Another great tune. Now, when I was talking about Battle of Evermore, I had mentioned that there was two songs that really just kind of falter in a manner of speaking on here. Friends is the other one. I was never really a fan of Friends, the original version, which is probably one of the reasons why I don't take much away from this version. The one thing that works is it's the shortest song on here. Well, the shortest Zeppelin cover on here. At 5 minutes and 48 seconds. After that, it's at least 7 minutes or more. But Friends just kind of, to me, fills the gap between Going to California and All My Love, which is the next track. And that's pretty much how I feel about it. Let's go on to All My Love. All My Love has actually oddly been one of my secret little favorite Zeppelin tunes. All My Love is honestly a top 10 kind of Zeppelin tune for me, and I don't have a good reason why. Usually not the type of song I'm into, but Zeppelin does it well. Zeppelin, it's Zeppelin, right? Now, the version on here, it's like twice the original length. Clocks in on here at 10 minutes and 35 seconds. The original is just over 5 minutes, I think. And this version is just absolutely beautiful, and it has a lot of its own flavor to it, obviously, at that length. It has to. And it just, for all of those Zeppelin songs, it closes out the album beautifully. It leaves it very warm. It leaves it very friendly and inviting, and there's just something magical about it by the end of this whole album. And the way that this track is done, I like that you can tell that it's All My Love, but I like that you kind of lose at parts that it's All My Love. And then we finished the album out with the other original piece, which is Kulu Valley Ambient Remix. Good way to close out the album. It takes it out kind of the way it goes in. You know, you feel like you've been on this whole journey. And that's what this album is to me. This album is a journey. I highly recommend you put this album on and just look at the artwork and just enjoy and just stare at it. It really is that kind of album. And I really think that it is an album that people should pick up. If you like Zeppelin, there's no reason why you shouldn't pick up this album. This is a fantastic cover album. It has everything you really, if you're a true Zeppelin fan, everything you respect. It's not like that Zeppelin tribute album that was done in the early 90s, which even I was guilty of having a copy of Once Upon a Time. I don't anymore. I can't even think of the name of the album, and when I find it, I'll pop it up here. You know, it had a bunch of pop artists. If you ever find this, Kashmir, Symphonic Led Zeppelin, I highly suggest you pick it up. It is for Zeppelin enthusiasts, and it is for people that like classical music. Oh my God, if you like classical music or variety classical music with other instruments put in there, you know, check it out. Ooh, sweet, sweet stuff. Anyways, everybody, you know the routine at this point. Leave a comment, subscribe, notifications, because that just totally slipped my mind, so I have to remind you if it slipped my mind as I'm talking about it. Otherwise, peace, love, and take care.